New York City mayoral candidate Andrew Yang decided to weigh in on the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, and his take was just as misinformed and ignorant as it was during the 2020 presidential primaries. He says, quote, "I'm standing with the people of Israel who are coming under bombardment attacks and condemn the Hamas terrorists. The people of New York City will always stand with our brothers and sisters in Israel who face down terrorism and persevere." Now, that would be a perfectly fine statement if the facts of the current conflict taking place right now were different. But the fact of the matter is this aggression began with the Israeli government trying to evict Palestinians from their home, also restricting Palestinians from being able to practice their religion in their most sacred mosque. That mosque was under attack 2 nights in a row with Israeli forces raiding it. A portion of the mosque was set on fire. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on. You look at the death toll on both sides, and of course there's a disproportionate amount of Palestinians, including 10 children, who have been killed in this violence. And so that take might have been okay, I don't know, even 5 years ago, where people were just openly putting out statements like this without acknowledging the Israeli government's aggression, but that's not the case here. In fact, I was personally surprised to see how much blowback Andrew Yang received as a result of this take, and there were some constituents who approached him because they were upset about this take, and that's what that confrontation looked like.
What do you have to say about your tweet directly to New Yorkers right now?
It's heartbreaking. All of this is happening in the Middle East.
It's heartbreaking.
Right, it is. You know, people are dying, civilians are dying, children are dying.
Do you condemn Israel for that? Do you condemn Israel for their unjust acts against the innocent Palestinians? Sir, I'm talking to him.
We got the publicist over here. We got
I'm
the guys
talking
over
to
here
him.
saying,
We gotta go.
don't say anything
Sir,
that's
touching
your
me. Please
campaign.
don't
And
touch
that's
me.
why you don't have my vote, and I guarantee you don't have the vote of a lot of New Yorkers.
What's also interesting, Cenk, is that he brought up the fact that New Yorkers stand behind Israel and all of that, but Jewish people in America actually do condemn the violence that's taking place right now. In fact, I'm gonna give you one quick quote from the editor of the Jewish Currents newsletter. You should follow him on Twitter as well. I think that he has really great takes on many different foreign policy topics, but he says, quote, "I realize you knew approximately 0 New York Jews until about 6 months ago, but I promise you, not all of us feel this way."
Yeah, so sometimes on Twitter, people get exercised over tiny little things, right? So you'll say, "I had a great tuna sandwich today," and they'll say, "Oh, I guess you don't care about the people dying of COVID."
I thought, yeah, that's
okay. So that happens all the time,
yes.
right? This is not one of those. Yeah. No, this is a situation that at the bare minimum you have to mention both sides, and in reality, of course, there's no question that Netanyahu's government raided the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They're trying to remove Palestinians from East Jerusalem. They, as always, have used disproportionate force and killed civilians and children, right? There's no question about any of that. So when Andrew Yang puts out a statement that doesn't mention Palestinians at all and just says, "Oh, we stand with Israel," that's like saying when Mohammed bin Salman murdered Jamal Khashoggi, we stand with our ally Saudi Arabia. I guess Saudi Arabia is our ally, but that's not the time to say it. And it's certainly not the time to be one-sided about it. So at a bare minimum, this was awful pandering. And it was kind of thoughtless pandering. Like, oh, New York is very Jewish. I'll say we love Israel when they're under attack, and then I'll get more votes. No, that's unsophisticated, right?
You're right, yeah.
It's most Jewish Americans vote for Democrats. And a lot of them are very progressive. That doesn't mean that they can't be biased on this issue. Of course some are, and I'll tell you from personal experience, I have people who are Turks in my family, and they're very progressive, and then you ask them about something in Turkey, and all of a sudden they're not progressive. I get it, right? So, but to think that that's a blanket statement that you can get away with in New York, and that's your way of supporting Jews in New York, that's just really bad form. Okay, to say the least. Okay?
Yeah.
But now when you go from the least to the more, it's also cruel. And I love that we live in a new America. This in the past, that would have been the most anodyne tweet of all time, and everybody would have celebrated him. He would have been asked to come on Joe Scarborough and talk about how wonderful Israel is, and everybody would have gone. Now they're in his grill right there with a camera. And I like Andrew, but that was terrible.
Well,
and I love the people who were putting a camera into his face and going, "Now answer the question. Answer the question. You're running for mayor in New York. You got to answer the question."
There were some who celebrated that tweet by Andrew Yang, including Senator Ted Cruz, Meghan McCain, and Stephen Miller. So those were 3 individuals who were very much in favor of that tweet. But the point that I want to make, you touched on something that I think is important, Cenk. Why it is that Andrew Yang had this particular take. I think that we give a lot of politicians way too much credit. And when it comes to Andrew Yang and his political aspirations, I think that it applies. So Andrew Yang has consistently failed on answering questions about foreign policy. It's not his expertise. It's very clear that it's not something that he has in any way delved into. In fact, during the Democratic primaries for the 2020 election, he was asked about a litany of foreign policy issues, including the conflict in Israel. And I just want to provide one video from 2019 showing you exactly where he's always stood on this issue.
Israel is a very, very important ally of the US. Certainly some of the actions that are being taken there are deeply problematic and run afoul of some of the standards that we'd like to see countries meet. I'd be hesitant to say that they are in violation of those standards.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, I know now he's running. Now he's running for mayor, right? But back then he was running for president. You got to do better. You just got to do better. And to me, the pandering is so over the top, and it makes it look ugly. So it reminds me of when Carly Fiorina running for president. University of Iowa was playing Stanford, and they were about to have the Iowa primary. She's from Stanford, right? And she's like, "Oh, normally I'd root for Stanford, but I'm going to root for Iowa." And everybody was like, "Shut up!" Even the people in Iowa were like, "You're such a pandering fool." Like everybody knows you don't care about football, and everybody knows you're trying to kiss our ass. That's so ridiculous, right? But again, this one is honestly worse because there's a lot of lives on the line. And it wasn't just pandering, it was cruel to basically erase Palestinians from this equation. And then to finally, look, it's not impossible for me to agree with Ted Cruz, or I'm having trouble saying the words, but maybe even Stephen Miller.
No.
I literally don't know a single instance where I've agreed with Stephen Miller, but I guess it's not technically impossible. But if Ted Cruz, like I agree with Ted Cruz on Export-Import Bank. So there's one thing, right? Okay. But if Ted Cruz and Stephen Miller liked a tweet of mine that said the sky is blue, I would go outside and check to see if the sky was blue again. Okay. I mean, you really got to wonder what you did wrong if you got the worst people in America to agree with you. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.